My name is Andrea. I am now a CEO of a construction company. We're a high-end residential subcontractor focusing on heavy construction. Everything was very disorganized. Tasks were getting dropped a lot. We had no one centralized place for everything. Maybe 5% of the bids, 5 to 8%, we were probably losing because we weren't turning things in. And definitely on the change order side, I mean, maybe 10%, 15% even.
What would you say is the value of that or the impact of all of this?
From a financial perspective, I think one of the biggest things has just been everybody being on the same page, just everything all visible. It's been so helpful. And I think it has probably saved us, or in a lot of cases won us, many tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, when one change order is $20,000 and we would forget to do it because we were so bogged down, I mean, that's value right there. I just had no idea that it could be what it has become. And like I said, every time I got excited, but then I was like, oh, we've been through onboardings before. This is not going to be good. And then it's been better and better.
So let's start with an introduction. If you could tell us who you are, what you do.
My name is Andrea. I am now a CEO of a construction company. We're a high-end residential subcontractor focusing on heavy construction, which is mostly below grade stuff.
Beautiful. So let's now go back in time and talk about the main challenges that you were experiencing before we started working together. Basically, what was your life and work like before we started working together?
I would say very disorganized. I have a fairly large office team, like, I don't even know, 15, 18, 20, maybe 20 people, including field supervisors. And everything was very disorganized. Tasks were getting dropped a lot. We had no one centralized place for everything. And we were using a bunch of different softwares and email and Teams and all of those kinds of things. And it was just very fragmented.
I remember that. And what was the consequence of that? Why was it a problem?
Well, one of my favorite moments is the fact that like someone would text something, maybe, and you would have to remember what text thread it was on. It's like, oh, was that the text thread with Octavio and Bill and Juan, or was that the text thread just with Bill? And then you would have to go through trying to find a picture or a message or something like that. And then it would be like, oh, no, wait, that wasn't on text message, that was on Teams. And then we'd have to go back through Teams and do the same thing. And it would take a lot of time to find things, for one.
Yeah, so chaos, and because of that, just wasting time and also wondering, where are the things? Where's the work? What should we do?
Yeah, exactly. And we had a lot of difficulty with kind of keeping everybody on the same page and on track, because we have project management teams and estimating teams. And then we also have like a dispatcher and a finance team and a structural steel team. So everybody was kind of all in many different places.
Yeah. And was there a moment? Do you remember a moment where you realized that something should change?
Well, originally, it was just about me staying on track. I don't remember necessarily a specific moment, but I was always the person who would basically try to write lists, and I'm very bad at lists. And I would end up getting to the end of the day and feeling like I hadn't actually completed anything on my list, and I had only just added like 5 or 8 other things that I had to do. But then I would leave the list somewhere and have no idea where the list was or what I was supposed to be doing, other than just typical construction stuff like, what's the most important thing right this second? So yeah, it was kind of just a lot of repeated moments like that.
That accumulated and erupted.
Yeah, and when we first started, I had no idea what Notion could actually do and what you would do. It was just a recommendation from basically a friend, a business associate, and it went from there.
Yeah. Baby steps, and we're going to cover them. shortly. So you already mentioned the tools, but what I want to ask is, what did you try before? So what were you using? What were the tools you were using? You mentioned that the work basically existed in text messages and emails, in different spreadsheets, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I mean, we had like a manpower scheduling dashboard, which was in Excel. And then we also had, I don't even know what we would call it. It was kind of tracking active projects as well as the left to bill on the active projects, like work in progress but not billed, basically. And then who the foreman was and what the timeline was going to be for the project. And that was also in another Excel spreadsheet. And then we had this other software that also used to be in an Excel spreadsheet at one point, but it was called BasisBoard, and it was actually really cool. But again, it's like we had multiple levels of different things, and we had to input things into the manpower scheduling. We had to input things into the second Excel spreadsheet and have them be in BasisBoard. And BasisBoard is for estimating, tracking, and job tracking, like stats for awarded projects and stuff like that, as well as like a module for having all of our contacts in one place. So again, it was, only as good as the information that we put into it. And because we were entering it multiple times in multiple different places, but information slightly different, it would just end up not happening, I think, for a lot of people. Like one person would have done BasisBoard and another person did the dashboard and then another person did the manpower scheduling, but they were never, like one person would never do all of the things that they were supposed to do, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And also there was Procore, right?
Yeah, and then we tried to use Procore for a little while. It was a horrendous onboarding process, honestly, but then we actually, at our 2-year mark with Procore, decided to pull away from it mostly because of our situation with Notion and Processized. Yeah, okay. Anyway, we, Procore was costing us, just for the couple modules we had, it was costing us like $40,000 a year. And I just felt like the support was not there as much as it should have been or could have been. And a lot of the things that we tried to ask them to fix, they just kind of couldn't really fix or do what we needed to do because they said the things were already set. So I don't know. And then like the manpower scheduling module that we had, it was cool, but it was so overcomplicated that like our people couldn't figure it out. We had Procore for 2 years and we never even really used it. I think we used it for like a week or two, and then it was just like, no, this is not going to work. So yeah, fun
Yeah,
stuff.
only the essentials were used, what absolutely needed to be used, and it was being used by a few people only, right?
Yeah, it was basically we were reusing the drawings module, and then time cards and daily logs.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Anything else, or shall we move on?
I think that's it on that topic.
A few to go.
Happy
So
to be saving money.
before we get into the weeds of what exactly we did, what or why specifically did you decide to work with me? What appealed to you? We had a random call. You were introduced by a friend, associate. Why did you say yes?
I thought that if we were all on the same page as a team, it would increase our productivity a lot. Just because things kept getting dropped, not on purpose, just because we were busy and tasks would get forgotten. It was mostly originally because I had no idea what we could do with it. It was mostly just because of the task tracking and having everybody in one place. I thought it was worth it even just for that, which sounds a little crazy, but
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense because yeah, as you're saying, you simply didn't know what was happening, who was working on what, right? And this is why we focused on the tasks tracking first.
Yeah, and the other thing was that we were losing projects because we weren't turning in the bids on time because people were forgetting about them. Because everything was in so many different places, we would forget about change orders, or we would forget about, then if we forget about change orders, we're not getting paid, right?
Yeah.
Because usually our foremen are doing the work anyway because they think we've done the change order, and so we're not getting paid for the work that we're doing, basically, which is not great at all. And
Yeah,
then
this is
losing jobs, completely losing jobs because we just weren't turning in proposals on time. And then, even other things, just smaller things, keeping clients happy by getting them middles when we need to and things like that. It was a little bit painful.
Yeah, it sounds painful, and it probably was very painful. So in short, these things that you mentioned, they were getting lost in the chaos, yes, in the text messages and the emails and the spreadsheets, or simply in people's minds.
Yeah. I mean, so much was in people's minds, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it possible for you to estimate percentage-wise, let's say, how many projects or bids you were losing because of that compared to today?
That would be a hard thing to estimate. Maybe 5% of the bids, 5 to 8%, we were probably losing because we weren't turning things in. And definitely on the change order side, I mean, maybe 10%, 15% even.
Yeah, that's crazy. Cool. So what appealed to you was the fact that you would have a place where the work lived. What place where you could see who is working on what, and where you obviously could work yourself and manage your work.
For
That was
tax,
the first step.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also how we ended up, well, we can talk about that later, but the private spaces as well.
Yeah, we can actually now move to that. So as we mentioned, we started with tasks. So we used Notion to build this workspace, this system where basically everyone from the office managed their work, where you could delegate the work, and we're onboarding sequentially. All the people started with the ones most involved with you and in the business until basically everyone had access to Notion. So that was the first step, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happened next?
Well, then I did some process mapping, right? I guess that was the next step, where we basically figured out where we were doing everything, like each of the different, like BasisBoard, for example, and the dashboard and the other manpower scheduling Excel spreadsheet and all of those kinds of things. We figured out where we were doing all of those things, and then Simon said, and then you said that you could create them in Notion, and I was very skeptical, if you remember. But I kept saying that I would be cautiously optimistic after he would show me the first V1, V1 of each of the new pieces. I was cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I remember this phrase. I've never heard it before, and yeah, I remember you saying, "I'm cautiously optimistic," and I was like, "Andrea, trust me. Let me just build it, and then you make a decision."
I'm like, yeah, you don't understand though. We ended up with Procore, and that was a shit show. So
great. So we did the process mapping. I think before we created those private spaces for you as well, right?
we did, yeah. Before we did, it was kind of around the same time.
Yeah.
It was once our business advisor and I figured out that we needed like a space for us that was just fully private that nobody had access to. So then, yeah, that's why we ended up with the BBCC private space, which is the one that I shared with our business advisor. And then I also have my own private space that nobody has access to.
Yeah, so on the one hand, we have this huge system that everyone from the office has access to, but also you had those private sections. And you also started doing your weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings with your team members where privacy is required. Basically, you also did it are doing it in the private space, right?
You mean the weekly rundowns?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them meetings necessarily, but yeah, they're like a quick weekly update that the employees, the leadership team, and a little bit beyond are doing.
Yeah. Awesome. So we did the mapping, and what was the next thing that we implemented?
I think the next thing that we implemented was the BasisBoard copy, right? The project dashboard, basically. And then We went to, let's see, we did the project one, which basically gave us our bids. So like we can email to an email address that we created and it automatically populates into Notion. So we have that, we can see what's being estimated. We can then change it to submitted. When we change the bids to submitted, we put in the quote so that we can see the value of it. And also we have approximate timeline starts and timeline ends. And then we have awarded as well, and lost of course, but awarded then moves over to our other dashboard, basically, where we can then look at manpower scheduling and stuff like that.
Yeah, so what we did in that step, we basically replaced BasisBoard, right? So what I did, I basically replicated the functionality. The first main functionality was an easy way to capture bids by sending them to an email address. And then they would get populated, automatically added automatically to Notion. And then the second part was actually managing the pipeline. So the deadlines, the bid values, who's responsible for what's the stage, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, and we have basically one person who kind of populates them from the inbox into estimating and like assigns them to people. Because that was I guess the one problem that we had, that we didn't assign just one person to do it, and so then everybody was kind of sort of doing it. So assigning one person was crucial.
Yeah. If everyone's responsible, then nobody is. And yeah, the emails, they can also be linked to those projects. So basically, we have the history of the conversation there, and also we have the CRM, right? So it also automatically adds different companies and contacts to another database. So you see actually, okay, from this company we have 5 bids, from that we have 8, and so on.
Yeah. And it's not always perfect. I mean, it's only as good basically as us like updating the information correctly, but BasisBoard was the same. Basically, like if we just ported something over from the inbox, the Notion inbox or the BasisBoard inbox without editing, if there's little errors, then it just goes and makes errors. So that's probably something we need to get a little bit better at, but still the information's pretty clear, so it's still really helpful.
Great. So the next step was, if I remember correctly, it was now taking what you were managing in Excel, right, those active jobs, and basically moving them to Notion as well, right?
Yeah, because that was the big problem, is like our current jobs, on hold and awarded jobs, were always in that Excel spreadsheet, and then we would get into our project managers meeting to review it, and a bunch of people would start saying, "Oh, I forgot to update mine." And then they would just update it in the meeting, which was hugely wasteful time-wise. It was also really helpful because we were able to get analytics. So we have analytics based on the months, like August, July, etc. And then we have analytics based on time periods, like the last 90 days or the last 30 days, both value of projects, projects won, projects lost, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I also remember that the problem was that basically before you had the same projects in 2 places, right? So you could have a project in BasisBoard, and then the same project was also in Excel. So we had projects in 2 places. Now everything is in Notion. Because they were in 2 places, not only did you need to use 2 tools, but also they were often not synced, right? Now everything is in one place, right?
Yeah, well, actually, now that I think about it, we had a third Excel spreadsheet. So we had the we had the manpower scheduling one that our dispatcher would use, and then we had the dashboard that we would review in the project managers meeting, and then we also had the wins list so that we could have analytics basically, and it would be like change orders and base bid wins per month, and then we also had BasisBoard. So someone every month would go to BasisBoard, pull all the information by hand from BasisBoard into the wins list. Yeah, it was really successful.
Yeah, I remember. I remember these stories. So okay, so we have tasks, we have bids, and we have now the active jobs.
Yes.
What happened next?
it's hard to remember what order we did everything in. And I think we went to timesheets, right? We started doing timesheet, the beta
Or
for.
manpower, or maybe more the manpower scheduling, wasn't it? I think we were doing it at the same time, but
But yeah,
Ellie,
didn't they have to do, the guys had to sign up in the timesheets thing to be able to be manpower scheduled, right?
yeah, I think we started timesheets, and while we were testing it, we built out a manpower module that was then being, Ellie started using that, and then we actually rolled out the time cards because it was a process that took some time.
And then the daily logs was right after that, the daily job reports, whatever everybody calls them.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it. We can just either, like, if you could just tell us a little bit about the manpower aspect and then the time cards.
Yeah, I mean, the manpower scheduling thing was big because one of the things that our dispatcher used to do is when I was moving guys, field workers, I don't know what you would call them necessarily, but the guys basically, and she would schedule them to go somewhere else. She would have to send a physical text message every time and write it all out, like, hi, George, tomorrow you are scheduled to go to XYZ job. The start time for that job is 7:30 a.m. The foreman is this person. Here's his phone number. And she would basically write that out or like copy and paste from others that she had done and just like change all the information and send the physical text message every time. And sometimes 30 guys are going somewhere else and sometimes 5 guys are going somewhere else, but it was really inefficient, like so much else that we were doing.
I felt sorry for her for needing to type out all those messages manually. That was crazy.
I know, and that's how we've been doing it for like 20 years. Yeah, it's pretty cool, I know. But then with the time cards and everything, one of the problems, since we were using time cards within Procore, one of the problems with Procore is that we weren't able to actually see where the guys were at any one point in time until they had clocked out for the day. So now we can see where the guys are because they're clocking in the morning, and it'll actually show us what project they're on. And also because it's kind of all tied together with the manpower scheduling that Ellie is doing, we can see where the guys are supposed to be and see where they actually are, which is hopefully the same place, but not always.
Yes. And you have quite a few guys, right? Around 100, almost 100, right? 90, around 90.
Yeah, 90, 94, I think, 94 guys, and some shop guys and stuff like that.
Yeah. And yeah, so everything is connected, right? So we mentioned the bits database, it's combined with the jobs database. It's just, with different status. And then the manpower and the timesheets modules, they all link to projects. So basically you can check if you're interested about project X, you can simply open it and you're going to see everything that is connected to this project, whether manpower or time cards and so on and so forth, right? And tasks.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to just open a project and kind of see everything there. And we've even been doing, just with Notion in general, we've been doing some new processes with billing, connecting our SharePoint, our OneDrive, to spots in Notion so that then people can just access it really easily. Like if we have a billing report, the PM can just review it really quickly through Notion because it links automatically from our finance team into SharePoint. So that's another thing that's been kind of huge, I think, because we used to print all of the billing reports.
The printing situation is also interesting.
Everyone here loves printing. We used to print all of the billing reports, and then people would literally write down the percentages and either give them to our finance department, copy them, like scan them, or email them, or there was just like a wide variety of different ways that it was happening. In general, we had in the past very few standard operating procedures that were actually codified and done well. That's what happened, 48-year construction company.
Yeah, now we're making some changes. Okay, so you mentioned the billing. Also, I think what's interesting, so just for context sake, we have the Notion, but what I did, I basically built an equivalent for time card tracking that you guys were using in Procore. So basically every worker, every guy in the field has this app on their phone where they can clock in and clock out and track lunch and track their cost codes that they're working on. And it's all being fed into Notion. And then you see this information in Notion and of course can track it. And then now we're using it also for, of course, costing and for payroll, right?
Yes. So
Anything to add there?
we're still printing way too much, but that's not a you problem. That's an us problem. We'll get there. It takes time.
Actually, we'll probably this week we'll probably start getting rid of printing those daily logs every week and instead having PMs review the time cards in Ocean. I'm working with Maria on that. Don't worry.
I'll just have our finance team like walking by my office glaring at me every second of every day because they love printing so much. Don't put that on.
Good. Awesome. And anything else? What else? Anything else you want to add?
Let me see. I mean, I think one of the things that has been really helpful too is like I said, the private spaces, because I have the weekly rundown that I do with team members, and that's something that only myself, our business advisor, and the person who's doing each of them can access. And that's been really cool because we were doing it in Google Docs, and it was weird because people don't know apparently very well how to copy and paste. So we were having to have somebody kind of work with it every single week and repopulate new sets of information. And they, like the template basically. And then we moved over into doing it in Microsoft Word or whatever, but the online 365, Microsoft 365 version. And it was the same problem. And then people would say they couldn't get in and they couldn't log in and all of this stuff. And we were still having to have somebody just put all the templates there all the time. And then you couldn't tell who had done it or not done it and all of those things. And so the weekly rundown ended up being very helpful because the template just auto-populates the moment they click new. It just auto-populates the whole thing. And then there's a button that says, I'm done. And it sends me a notification.
Your favorite buttons?
Yes, I love buttons.
Cool. Awesome. So summarize, so we went through the main modules. So again, the tasks, the bits, the projects, the manpower scheduling, the time cards, the daily logs, and the private space and everything basically combined, interconnected. So what would you say is the value of that or the impact of all of this?
I mean, a financial impact or like a mental impact?
Any and every.
I mean, mentally, it's really been helpful because I don't feel as scattered. Like that was the other thing that I would do that I didn't even mention before is I have an Apple Watch, of course, and an iPhone. And so I would send myself messages like, hey Siri, tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning, remind me to do XYZ thing. And then the reminder would come up and I would just like ignore it or whatever. And then it eventually kind of just disappears. Or you pile up so many reminders that then you just can ignore them because there's so many of them. And it was never super easy. And I used to be awake a lot in the night. And that sounds dumb, but I used to be awake a lot in the night and I'd be thinking about work or something that I needed to do at 2:30 in the morning. And at first I would try to put reminders and that just didn't work. So then I would start just waking up and trying to do the thing that I was supposed to do at 2:30 in the morning just so that I could not think about it anymore and go back to sleep. So then having easily accessible Notion on my phone where I could just put in a note to myself and then look at it in the morning. I don't know, it just kind of felt like a brain clearing thing. I don't even know how to describe it. It sounds stupid, but it really helped. I sleep a lot better now.
Yeah, I remember it was at the beginning of our collaboration. I remember your messages like, how nice it is to have this way to capture my thoughts. I don't need to think about them anymore.
Yeah, and I was excessively excited about that. So, I mean, that was huge, just like reducing the mental load. Like because otherwise I would sit there too, just going, I have to remember to do that thing in the morning, and then I would be worried that when I would wake up, I would forget because I have a life, I have kids and, a husband, and we're busy doing other things too, other than just working. And so I was always afraid that at 6:30 in the morning, when I was up and going, that then I would forget that thing that I wanted to do at 2:30 in the morning.
Yep.
Or why it was important. Maybe I would forget that. I don't know. I would just used to worry about that. But then from a financial perspective, I think one of the biggest things has just been everybody being on the same page. I mean, even just with not having BasisBoard and having all of just everything all visible, it's been so helpful. And I think it has probably saved us, or in a lot of cases won us, many tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, when one change order is $20,000 and we would forget to do it because we were so bogged down, I mean, that's value right there.
Yeah, that's amazing. It relates to what you said at the beginning, right? That you were forgetting about either following up on bids or tracking change orders or submittals.
Yeah.
Now basically fewer are lost or forgotten.
Yeah, and that's just the simple version of it, right? Obviously, we've gotten rid of Procore, which is saving us a lot of money and mental headaches. Obviously, onboarding a new system or software is never easy. I think with Procore, it took us 9 months or something like that, and we didn't even have the financial module or the estimating module. We just had the project management one, the manpower one, and quality and safety, which our safety team never ended up using, and some other module that I can't remember. Obviously very important. And that was $40,000 a year that we were spending on that.
Yeah, so it took 9 months, 40K, and even after those 9 months, like I remember, right? I spoke to all those people, like nobody loved Procore, and only a few selected ones that were the most patient were actually using it.
Yeah, basically. I never hardly even went on Procore, and our owner would always go, I don't have a Procore login. He did. He had a Procore login. He just never remembered that he had one.
Yeah. And how was it with us? Because we've been working together for, I think, 6 months, almost 6 months. I don't even remember, but how was the onboarding with us, with me, with Processized?
I mean, it's been a lot better than I expected. No offense.
You were scaring me. Like, it's gonna be hard.
No, I was thinking learning a new software, like, ugh, here we go again, But the other thing I was thinking is that it would be hard because you're not here in the US. And I thought you wouldn't be enough of a nag to, get us to actually do it and get people to follow through, and that I would basically have to go around nagging people to do things. But you've been very helpful, and somehow you're a very good nag even from afar.
That's what I do. I nag people.
Yeah, and the team actually, like, they love that they can access you very easily. When we were having issues with Procore, it would take a week. We would get a response right away, basically saying, oh, thank you for your request or whatever. And then like a week later, we would actually get some type of Zoom meeting or something with a couple developers. Then they would look into it after the Zoom meeting, and then it would take another couple weeks, and we maybe wouldn't hear back, and then we'd have to follow up again. I like, one of the biggest things for me is I like the fact that we're not having to follow up with you. You're following up with us, because that's one of the worst things. We're super busy. We have a hard time because we're so busy. We have a hard time being the ones to follow up, especially when it's going to mean we have to do more work, in some ways, because it's onboarding different systems can be a little bit difficult. I would say Notion is a lot easier than anything that we've done so far and anything that we've looked into. But yeah, you being on top of us has been a lot better than us trying to have to get in touch with you.
That's my job.
Being on top of people.
Yes, this is what I do. That's my main priority.
Yep.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Great. So some closing questions, maybe one or two. So yeah, that's interesting. So what is unique about Processized? I think you already mentioned a few things, but what makes it different from all the alternatives that are available? Obviously, one thing is that now you have most of the things in one place, right? But what's unique? What's different?
Well, first of all, when our business associate recommended Notion initially, I thought it was kind of just like Notion, and I went into Notion and I tried to use it for like 3 weeks and I was like, oh God, this is going to be horrible. I hate this. I hate this thing so much. There's no way I'm going to like this. There's no way I'm going to be able to get anybody else to actually do it. If I'm not doing it, then no one else is going to do it. And so then she said, no, it's not Notion. It's Notion, but it's with Processized. So it's totally different. And Simon builds out basically your infrastructure of what works and what you want. And I was like, okay, yeah, fine, sure. And it's been 100% different than I expected it to be. I was expecting it to be much more like Notion than how it is. Original Notion that I was messing with anyway. And yeah, just having access to you has been really helpful. We can shoot you a text message, send you a Notion notification, or, Teams, right? Because I don't know how everybody does it, but it's been helpful to have our whole groups on Teams, because when you send out notifications like, hey guys, here's this video of how to do this better. And then, when you send those out, those are really helpful. And I think people actually watch them because they're like 3-minute videos and it's not excessively painful.
Yeah, got it. So my availability and just this almost hand-holding, you could call it, in terms of implementing the system, customizing it, and then just making sure that everything works as it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I was going to say babysitting, but hand-holding also works.
Yeah, because you mentioned the Procore, it sounds terrible with the, waiting for the call, then waiting for the reply.
No, it was horrible.
Ridiculous.
And yeah, and even during our onboarding process, we had that issue, and they would ghost us for like 3 weeks at a time. And maybe that was just our implementation person, but that's just so annoying. We're paying a lot of money for a software and getting literally no response. It's insane.
Crazy. Oh, awesome. And last question. So maybe there are some misunderstandings about what I do, or in general, like what would you say to a person who's maybe watching this video, maybe heard about me and who's on the fence and doesn't know, like, is it really worth it? Does it make sense?
I mean, it's like at the beginning, I thought that it was just all related to tasks. And even just task related, I would have been happy with the initial onboarding period. I just had no idea that it could be what it has become. And like I said, every time I got excited, but then I was like, oh, we've been through onboardings before. This is not going to be good. And then it's been better and better because you keep being able to build new things. And then we sit there talking, going, what could we build next? And then, like, oh, I have a solution for that. That's been excessively helpful. It's almost like it's the whole like your wish is my command thing. And the fact that we actually have the Notion wants and needs, just looking up what it says, so that our whole team could actually just go in and put all of the different things that they want that would be helpful for them. And so that's been really nice, because then it wasn't something where, again, I had to be the one absorbing all of the information and then translating it to you, basically. Like, oh, yeah, Alicia wants this, or, Ellie wants this. They just put it there, and then you meet with each person separately and have those conversations and figure out what they're looking for. That has been insanely helpful.
Lovely. I'm happy and I appreciate that. And yeah, it sheds light a little bit on the process of how we work. Is like, one example is, for example, the time card, clock card reminders, right? So we've implemented it literally, I think, on Thursday, like a few days ago. or guys who forget to clock out, they receive a text message automatically. So this is an example of what we do, but as you just explained, basically either have a backlog or we meet to map the different processes to elucidate the problems that are in the company. Then we just take the most relevant problem and build a solution, and the goal is to centralize as much as possible, to have as many things as we can in Notion and to have them run as smoothly as possible.
And building things out in like a priority list. Like, for example, the time cards took priority over some of the other things because of the fact that our subscription with Procore was hitting its renewal. So you push that forward. And I was thinking like, oh God, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. But we did. We made it.
you did think that? I didn't know that.
I mean, it's the cautiously optimistic thing, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I hope this works. And then it's like, oh God, the guys are so adverse to change. They don't want to do anything different. And then when I told all the foremen that we were spending $40,000 a year for Procore, they're like, okay, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah. Awesome, Andrea. It's mentioned it many times. It has been an absolute pleasure working together. We're still working together, but those almost 6 months were amazing. And yeah, thank you for sharing all of that.
Well, cool. I'm glad it could be helpful, and I hope it'll help with other people too.
Great. I'm gonna